stick around to the end. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Cliff Mautner. Thank you, Cliff. Take it away.
Thank you, Pete. First of all, Joel, I have a couple of those shirts and my daughters fight over them. So they're really soft and lovely and great sleepwear, and we really like them. I want to thank SanDisk. I want to thank Sammy's. I want to thank Nikon for putting these on. I really spent a great deal of time putting these together, and this is sort of the culmination of the 3 seminars. And also what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be going back into my past. I'm talking 20 years from my wedding career, and pulling out images that haven't been seen in a while, that I put away and haven't seen the light of day for a long time. And one of the things I want to emphasize with this class is the importance of creating images that are timeless for our clients, for us, for the betterment of wedding photography in general. I'll preach a little bit in a little while, but I am going to jump in. I'm going to talk a little bit about, skill sets and just basically I'm going to tear apart a wedding day and go through the various elements of the wedding day, thus the name Anatomy of a Wedding Day. Feel free to chime in to Pete in the chat with some questions. If you have specific questions that are technical about the gear, I think Joel can answer some of those, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen here. All right, and I'll kind of do that. And then what I got to do is I got to pull this over here so that I don't see it. Oh, that didn't work. Let's see. I've got to get it out of the way so I can see what's going on here. All right, bear with me a second. The wonders of Zoom, I'll tell you. Come on, there we go. I am a very proud Nikon ambassador. In fact, you'll have to excuse me for a second because I've got to take this and get this way out of the way. Let's see if I can jam it in there. Now it's over there. How about I just do that? Yay, that worked. Can you tell I don't do this a whole lot? All righty.
You've done it 3 days already.
Yeah, I know. No excuses anymore, right?
You know it by now.
No excuses. I can't tell you that I couldn't find the link to get on here a little while ago, and I was crapping in my pants. I finally found it. Them. Yeah, I did change them though. I'd like you to follow me on Instagram. I think there's some it's very recent imagery. I try to post 2-3 days a week. The education group on Facebook, find that. It's free. Free is good. Free is very good. And then I am hoping to do another boot camp in the fall when we can actually see humans in person again. So this is a little bit about what's in my gearbox. I'm always asked, what do you take to a wedding? And before you ask, you take all that to a wedding? I'm going to answer, yeah, I really do. I do take 5 bodies to a wedding. And all those lenses, I'm going to get into a little bit about lenses in a little bit. The FTZ adapter. I'm often asked, believe it or not, I'm asked this, Joel, can I use my old lenses on my Nikon bodies, my Z bodies? The answer is yes. And I believe that it works seamlessly. My 105-1.4, which I'll talk about in a little bit, is my favorite lens still. And it is a non-native Z lens. It is an E lens, fits on the DSLRs, but I use it with the adapter and it's flawless, lossless. I do take some speed lights. I do take my 200 watt-second Westcott, which is a prototype at the moment that I have, and I'm hoping to get the production model soon. Modifiers, I still use Rogue flash benders. The other night I talked about my Stella Pro lights. These are continuous light sources. The CLX10 is lighting me here right now. The 8000 is now in a little cookie gobo that is giving me that light in the background with a half CTO gel. I use these at every single wedding, every single shoot, really. This is my workhorse right now. This is my Z6 II. It is my body of choice. The question that I'm asked most, why buy the Z6 II over the Z6? Well, low light wedding receptions. I'm going to be honest, I couldn't shoot low light wedding receptions with my Z6, but I can with my Z6 II. I love it. I'm able to use it. I don't use my D850 anymore. It's a great camera, but I'm all Z6 II for this. I put these in there, although hint, hint, I don't have any 256 cards right now. I have my 128 CF Express, and it is a racehorse. It's phenomenal. In my backup slot in my Z6 II, which has a backup SD slot, I'm placing in a 512. I don't have a 1T yet. This right here, whether you can see me or not, I can't see myself. Maybe that's a good thing. By the way, Pete, this is a 0.5 terabyte. This is a 500 gig, and it is also spectacular. I also use the SanDisk SSD, and I transport files. This is a travel drive. I transport files from my home to here. It's spectacular. And all of my weddings are stored on 3 separate external G-Tech drives. Okay. Lenses.
Hey, Cliff, 1 second. I hate to interrupt you. I
Out of
think
focus?
your camera, yeah.
All right. Yay.
Let me see your hand. That looks good.
Is that better, Pete?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
I probably went out of the frame. Right now, I am in AFF mode, in video mode, and that's probably what's doing it, okay? In any case, lenses, speaking of lenses, focusing lenses, they're an extension of our mind's eye. They truly are. When I walk into a wedding, I've got a couple of bodies on me, okay? I've got one body with a 35-1.8, and I have another body with my 105-1.4 with the adapter on there. This is an unbelievable, this 7200, the Z lens, the S, okay? This is so sharp, amazing piece of glass, and I use this a lot for portraits. I use it for receptions. I use this a lot, and this is part of the Trinity, what they call the Trinity, with 24-70, 7200, 14-28. I do not have the 14-28 right now, but these are stellar. And this is my baby. This is still my favorite lens that I've ever used, my 105-1.4. It's got a look that is incredibly, incredibly unique. I hate cameras, though. They interfere. They're always in the way. I wish if I could work with my eyes alone, okay? I'm trying to basically say to you that you need to forget about the gear and you need to think with your mind's eye. The gear is an extension of our mind's eye. This is the adapter I was referring to, okay, which takes care of all of the DSLR lenses and all of the older Nikon lenses that can all work on the mirrorless cameras. Buying a Nikon, though, doesn't make you a photographer, it makes you a Nikon owner. Years ago, I used to have this in my programs. I call it the essentials of creativity. First and foremost, capturing decisive moments, removing blinders of habit. I think we are all guilty at times of thinking at a wedding about making images that we've made time and time again. And so if we can go into a wedding and sort of strip ourselves of these recipes, these habits, get rid of these preconceived notions and try to capture what's in front of us, avoid being formula driven. Everything I do revolves around light. So I try to find the light first and foremost, okay? Wedding photography was not natural to me. I went from photojournalism into weddings in 1997, 1998. I was a photojournalist with the Philadelphia Inquirer 15 years before I started shooting weddings. And you might think that it was a natural transgression from one to the other, but it wasn't. I really needed how to make people look good. I needed to learn how to be a portrait artist, okay? I needed to really learn how to bring the storytelling, which this is a story and this is a wedding photograph, bring some of those elements, bring my photojournalism background into weddings, but with a little softer touch. I knew how to make people look interesting. I knew how to tell a story, but I didn't know how to make people look beautiful. I didn't know how to make women look beautiful. And this is something that I really had to get in touch with. So for you guys out there, put on that androgynous hat, if you will, and don't just think like a guy when you walk into a wedding. You really have to, almost put a feminine touch on your images so that you can flatter these brides, because otherwise I think, they're going to have a hard edge to them. And I think my edge needed to be a little softer. Unobtrusive, the world of photojournalism, unobtrusiveness does not mean invisible. Okay, I'm underneath a chuppah here at a Jewish wedding, but I'm not invisible. The bride was staring right at me. She was not upset. She wanted me there, but we made eye contact and I made a frame. But we are not invisible. And it's okay not to be invisible. A little bit of tech talk. All right. They asked me, how do you make pictures? I was puzzled. I said, I don't know. It's not important. Cartier-Bresson did not worry so much about f-stops, shutter speeds, and ISOs. So you shouldn't either, but you need to know them. We don't live in an 18% gray world. And if we did, everything would look like this. All of our exposures would be perfect every stinking time. We wouldn't need meters. We wouldn't need matrix meters. We wouldn't need anything. But today, with mirrorless cameras, with the EVF, exposure is pretty simple. So I won't even talk about it a lot. Exposure is exposure is exposure. Okay. I have a little bug up my butt when people start talking about how do I expose for darker complected people. Well, the answer is, for those of you that took my workshop, right? Properly. The answer is properly. I don't open up. I don't overexpose. Why would I want to blow out the highlights on this man's face? Why would I want to blow out the highlights on this man's face when all it would do would make his light-skinned wife brighter and she'd be blown out? So how do I expose here? The answer is properly. So I'm going to break some things down. Wedding prep. We walk in. Here we are. Okay. I have a mindset. And as a man, I do think there's a disadvantage somewhat to walking into a room full of women getting ready. Okay. We have to kind of leave that machoism, that testosterone behind a little bit. And I'm speaking to you with emphasis and I'm speaking to you with, vigor. But when I walk into a wedding, my voice changes, my demeanor changes. I'm much lower. I slow down a little bit and I try to get the people in that room to sort of forget about my presence a little bit. But when I'm teaching, I'm much louder. Okay. So I try to clear my mind of specific images I want to make. Just because I've worked at the Bellevue 100,000 times doesn't mean I want to make the same images. Okay. I make myself small and I attempt to blend. Men need to be a little bit sensitive to the women's needs in there, I believe. I scat out and I look for the best light. Everything with me begins and ends with light. Remember, more light's not necessarily good light. I turn off overhead lights. I close drapes, okay, so that I maybe have one drape open so I have very specific directional light. I don't want the light to spill all over the place, and I find it wherever it might be. My philosophy: shadows my canvas, light is my paint. This is a Rembrandt. This is very much how I become inspired to utilize light. Light makes photography. Embrace light, admire it, love it, but above all, know it. Know it for all you're worth, and you will know the key to photography. Some loser named George Eastman. I mean, who the hell was he? What did he know about photography? I showed this image last night, and this is all about light. This is all about the light giving me leading lines into the subject and highlights juxtaposed against shadows and just You know, this is all about light, all about it. Same thing here, all about light. Placing my subjects in the right spot, highlights juxtaposed against shadows, finding darker areas so that when the light hits the subject, you can really see the highlights. Just goofy kid, just really pretty light coming in. She just happened to go in it. I was photographing the gown. Well, she just happened to step in it. Why not make a picture? Once again, just the drama and the beauty of the juxtaposition of shadows and highlights. Sometimes I walk into a scenario and I'm faced with a situation that I don't particularly care for. No, not this bride. She was lovely. Not the location. It was the second wedding at the new Four Seasons in Philadelphia. But there was no darkness. There was no real texture dimension for me to sink my teeth into. I was out of my comfort zone. So I just had to improvise and just, you know, I had to expose properly. So the background is blown out, but the faces are still properly exposed. It's an effective look, but it's not exactly the dramatic, dark, moody look that I desire. This is more, some of my friends out there will appreciate this, the light and airy look that some clients go for. You don't have any light for prep? Well, enter Stella, okay? I was bouncing this off of a wall and it was coming back and hitting her, all right? Once again, a little bit of Stella, no problem. This is all artificial light. This room was as large as a small, small box. It was like a closet, okay? Simple. Use a little Stella. No light in there. You can observe a lot just by watching. I love that. And sometimes when you are in one of these prep rooms and you see the light falling somewhere, go ahead and place your subject in it. You might be surprised at what you can make. This bride had walked through this patch of light, and I thought it might be a good spot to place her in and have her mom help her with her gown. I noticed that lovely little rim light, I'll call it, right on her face, and I placed her in that light. Juxtaposition of highlights and shadows. This image is about 20 years old now, and I brought some of these out of the archives to show that, you know, portraiture sometimes can be truly timeless. This was a bedspread that was very, very, well, orangey red. I was using an 85-1.4 window light. I got above her. There was separation between the subject and the background. And now that bedspread just looks like a red backdrop. And this is, I mean, stunning woman. And I still love this portrait. I still love it. I think this was, might have been, believe it or not, it might have even been like a D70. I mean, we're going back way, way long ago here. D70 or a D100. I had all those and they weren't great, but they worked. This is really, really early on. I think this was a D100, and I pumped up the ISO a little bit. Those old cameras didn't handle ISO too well, but again, just put her in some good light. This is really old, and I still love this image. So some of you won't believe me. I don't care, but I had a lot to do. I'm not saying I invented it, but I sort of helped start the first look trend. This was the title of a slide that I showed at WPPI in 2005. And I just called it the first glimpse on the wedding day. And really what it was couples seeing each other for the first time on the wedding day so that they can get more portraits. And so I'll spare you the genesis of the story, but it was one of my bride's ideas who had no time to do portraits afterwards because it was going to be dark. And she said, well, maybe I can see him beforehand. I said, well, that's a great idea. And I set it up in a specific way. I have the groundwork in place. I know where I'm going to do this. I know I'm going to place the bride. I make sure they're alone. I do my best not to have bridesmaids and groomsmen and moms and dads so that then when they first see each other, you hear, oh, because there's no intimacy at that point. The bride and groom are not going to interact. They're going to, oh, hey guys, how's it going? And they're not going to really share that moment. I try to earn the bride's trust. I try to, because I'm taking her somewhere with her gown. I'm holding the back of her gown. It's just me and her. And I really want her to know that I'm not going to let anything happen to her. I set the stage for the moments. I share that intimacy with them. I feel that energy when they're about to see each other for the first time. Go ahead, let yourselves get carried away a little bit with it. It's really beautiful sometimes when it's not a scenario that you're setting up where, you know, the groom is there and the bride just comes and taps him on the shoulder. Don't do it that way, guys. There's nothing intimate or fun about that, okay? I find the best light, and it really is a great opportunity, by the way, to capture the essence of the bride when she's waiting for him. That's how I do it. I put her in a spot. She's waiting for him, and she's nervous as hell. And sometimes there's a planner with me, and I'll basically ask her to remove herself because I want that nervous energy. I want to see that bride get excited. I want to see that bride very, very anxious to see him for the first time. And if someone's there making her very comfortable, I don't know. I think it makes for better pictures when she's anxious, okay? And the reactions, again, this is probably 16 or 17 years old. These are precious, precious reactions. This is very early on. One of my favorite couples of all time. I think this is probably 2006 or 7. I can't recall, but you can see just the progression here. And this is Bill, and his reactions are just amazing. And that's Karen. This is a little more recent. I placed her in Rittenhouse Square, and she's just reacting. Now you might say, what about that light? I'll get to it in a minute. I talk about Rembrandt a lot. I like the way he used light. He was a really good photographer. I love the little triangle. I try to use that. You obtain that, folks, by adjusting your position, making the light come from an angle, making the light come from a little bit of an angle, not so straight on. Otherwise, it's a little too flat. Direction creates dimension. Now it's behind them and it's creating this dimension. Side light creating dimension. Extreme side light creating dimension. And again, I talk about films a lot. I talk about art a lot. I get inspired by these things. This is Spielberg and the way he used light. Same kind of thing. The edge of light. I love taking bits and pieces of the light and placing it upon my subject. This is very recent, just a few weeks ago at a wedding. Whenever you have your subject that is just juxtaposed against some of that darkness, like this bride, it's juxtaposed against the wall behind her, and you have a window coming towards her, you're going to get that little bit of light right there. I hope I didn't throw myself out of focus because it's neat. It looks for my eyes. So Pete, you tell me if I'm out of focus again. Set the stage for moments to take place without staging the moments. I talked about this last night. It's a way to obtain lovely composition for a situation that's going to happen anyway. So why not control it? Photograph the world as it is. Nothing's more interesting than reality. Okay. And when Kate asked me where she wanted to read where I should have her read the letter, I told her to do it in this good light. And it was real because I didn't place the bridesmaids. Same thing with this. And I did show these last night in my composition class. Same kind of thing. You're stuck doing a first look at 1 p.m., harsh light. Well, that's my bag. You know, I used to joke, light's my bitch. And taking harsh light at 1 p.m., it wasn't a real problem, okay? There's a couple ways to do it. The most important thing is to understand that shade is not the answer. I saw on Facebook one time, this guy was talking about solutions to shooting harsh light. You click on the little video, he says, get in shade. No, I don't think so. Here's the most important thing to remember. Put your subject between you and the sun. Put your subject between you and the sun. Even if it's very high in the sky, you're still going to be able to utilize it. It's still going to have a direction. Exposed for faces, not veils. Sometimes it's a compromise, but it's usually worth it. Sometimes you'll blow some veils out, but you'll get some dramatic pictures. Make the bad light good light, okay? This is 1:30 in the afternoon. Last night I talked about how I set the stage for this to take place. I had to change the location of this first look a couple different times because of the position of the light. It changed. Light moves. That sun moves. Actually, the earth moves, but what we see is the sun moving. 1:30 in the afternoon, another first look. I did these for Nikon a few years ago, Nikon behind the scenes videos. I'm really good. What do you think? Fantastic picture, don't you think? No, it's a deliberate effort to make a crappy picture and then a deliberate effort into making a decent picture by simply having them do a 180, putting your subject between you and the sun. There is, before anybody asks in the chat, no, there's no reflection here. There's no fill light. There's no stella. There's nothing, absolutely nothing. This is, and you can see that there's no stella. You can see that there's no fill because as lovely as she is, the eyes are a little dead, okay? I did sacrifice that a little bit in lieu of speed.
You don't want to tell a bride that, Cliff.
What, that her, she has dead eyes?
Her eyes are dead, yeah.
No, what I mean is there's no catch lights. If I see, I'm glad you brought that up. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to work really fast. The idea is to get as many images as humanly possible in the fastest period of time, okay? And I don't really have time to set up a light all the time. Now I have Stella, and now I would use it. This was from a 2005 class that I showed on how to shoot in harsh light. This is 2005. This is outside of Bally's on the side in the parking lot. I think it still stands up. I really do.
Cliff, we have a question along those lines. Do you use anything to help you gauge the light or work with sunlight in that? Or I know you just said you don't use Stella and all those other things, but is there anything, or is it all just done by your eye?
What does that mean, gauge light, though? I mean,
well, the specific question with somebody is, do you use an app for the sun? I'm guessing that means, are you using something to help you
actually
gauge the light?
I use Sunseeker, but I know that the sun, I'm not being sarcastic. I know that the sun is going to go.
Oh, that's what they meant. I didn't get the question. All right.
Yep, I use Sunseeker, but I also know that the sun is going to go from east to west. Okay. So I approximate, okay, as it moves, you know, no problem. But yes, Sunseeker. I think it's like $9 a year or $19 a year. Well worth it. It's kind of cool. So really when I use that, actually fair question now that I think about it, if it's 9 a.m., I'm shooting an Indian wedding, okay, South Asian wedding, 9 a.m., and I want to know where the sun's going to be for portraits at 5 p.m., that's a good app to have. It's actually kind of cool because you can approximate, but you don't know exactly where it's going to be. And I'm out of focus again. Thank you. Hold on.
Nope, you got, oh, you came back in. You were for a second, then you came back in.
Oh, I'm sorry. So what happens sometimes, guys, is that when I take my hands all over here, sometimes it moves out. So I'll try not to, just, my grandfather was Italian, so I talk with my hands a lot. 2 o'clock, I love 2 o'clock, okay? I love the harshness. I love how it gives me an outline for backlight. There is no other light going on here than just sunlight. This was an engagement session. And, you know, is it perfect? No, it's not. Maybe I could use a little bit of light on their faces, like maybe I could here, okay? But I'm happy with these. I'm fine with these. I really, really am.
Cliff, we got another question. They
Bring it
asked,
on.
Is your camera on matrix or spot meter? What is your setting?
Well,
you're out of focus again.
Okay. You know what I want to check? I want to check one thing. Here. I got to put it on AFF. Okay. So I should have used the Z6 II for my webcam. Am I sharp again?
Yeah.
Some people would differ with that. I'm using a Z6. The Z6 II does focus better. So your question one more time, Pete. I'm so sorry.
Is your camera on matrix or spot meter? What
It
is your
used to,
setting?
I never used spot meter. I used to use matrix when I used a meter. When I switched to mirrorless, to be honest with you, I don't even think about metering anymore. I just don't. It's just not necessary. I trust my electronic viewfinder, and what I see is pretty much what I get. So those of you still shooting DSLR, yes, I'm still shooting. I would still use a matrix meter. And, but then again, meters are fooled. I can't go into metering and how to not be fooled by your meter and all this other stuff and exposure compensation. I only have an hour. Okay. I'm already behind because I talk too much, but I do that a lot in my workshops, and I promise you, I go into that in great detail. But matrix is what I used to use when I used a DSLR. All right. Another first look at 2 o'clock. I love these people. Amazing. So I wanted to throw this in there because yes, this is about 2 p.m., but I used Stella. So it's harsh light coming from behind, but there is Stella filling in her face. Same thing here, very harsh, very, very harsh winter light, and there's Stella very close to their faces filling in. So this is how I do this now. I have an assistant with Stella. The battery life is unbelievable, and I can just run around, run and gun, and I don't need a speed light. I don't need a flash when I'm doing these. Now I just fill in with Stella. Very different. Again, a little bit of Stella really, really does the job. And you can see those, Pete, live eyes. He's got catch lights in there now. And then you got 4 p.m., a lot of drama here. Really beautiful light. I probably would not even use any Stella in that situation for fill. Beautiful, lovely rim light here going on in these. And this to me is just, it's just lush. It's, you know, this is what light is all about. It's just beautiful. And then at 6 o'clock, you got the magic hour going on here. You can do just about anything with this light that you want, whether it be silhouettes or not. The thing that's important to know is that you never know. You're always sort of feeling your way. And we were in a bus in Washington, D.C. This was a very, very cold day in March a couple of years ago. And we had just left the Lincoln Memorial in D.C. And I saw these trees and I saw the sun. I said, stop. We got out, we ran out. They braved the cold and I made the picture. And it took about 3 minutes, but don't be afraid to do that with your clients. Stop, take them out. You know, towards the end of the night, I saw a really nice sunset and I gave them the opportunity. I said, would you like to make a picture outside? It would take about 3 or 4 minutes and we'll be right back in. And they said, yes. Flat light, all right? Speed lights or continuous lights, you can decide what you want to use. For me, my first choice is going to be Stella for the most part. And these are all Stellas. These are all the continuous lights. My assistant is behind her to the right, hitting her face. This was, again, I showed this in the second class where the light just missed the faces, Aaron, just missed just a little bit. And then for the next frame, they were hit. So you can see the difference in hitting or missing. It's really a beautiful light source. And I use this a lot.
Cliff, we got another question along that lines of, since you brought up Stella, somebody asked if they have the equivalent of TTL or is it only manual?
One more, TTL, did you say?
TTL.
It's the continuous light does not have a mode like that. It goes by lumens. And the beautiful thing is it's not a flash, it's continuous. So what you see is what you get. When you pump up the light, if I didn't have them working here, and if I didn't really want to like put myself out of focus again, I'd leave here, okay, and show you. Literally, it's just a matter of just pumping up or pushing a different button for more output. Okay, it's not a flash, so you don't need manual or TTL. So basically, it's manual. and you pump out the lumens, if you will, and it's continuous. This is Shobha Narayan, the amazing Shobha Narayan. I shot her wedding last year. Actually, last year, 2019. Last year was a blur. So 2 years ago. A little bit of Stella playing with color temperature, a little bit more Stella. Okay.
What model Stella do you use?
I use the CLX 10,000, the CLX 10 it's called. And if you go to my Cliff Mautner education page, if you want to join there, I'll post a discount link for it. I'll post a discount link for it later tonight if you're interested. More Stella. Okay, a little bit more. So I use it a lot. So I want to talk about the importance of gesture. So we make a lot of pictures and whatnot, and I always see sometimes as photographers, we get a little stale with our posing, or I like to call it prompting. But a lot of this comes from our clients. If they just had their hands at the waist, it's kind of a boring pose. But that little gesture, that little hand on his face, to me, that's what makes this image. Sure, it's good light. Sure, I like to think it's good composition. And, I used a, 105-1.4 and blew the background out of focus and all that. But that little bit of gesture, that's what makes it. The fact that this woman, Jackie, is so elegant and the way she holds that veil is so elegant, that's what makes this picture. It's not just about the light, it's the gesture, the little gestures that really make it. The hand on the chest. So instead of putting your clients together and having their hands down, have them do something. Have them create a little bit of gesture to make them look a little bit more interesting. Just the laughter is gesture, okay? This is a first look. Look at the gesture here. It's not just, hug, hug, kiss, kiss. You can see the anticipation and the laughter and the joy. This is all part of gesture. So as we get towards the ceremony, we have really amazing moments that we can capture before the ceremony. And you concentrate on this. Don't just wait down by the aisle waiting for something to happen. Wait and see what the bride is doing with mom or with dad or with other people. This is a father of the bride waiting to walk his daughter down the aisle. And, same thing here. The moments are precious. The anticipation that these people have before they get married, it's so important. The whole point of taking pictures so you don't have to say things with words. And it doesn't need any words. So before the ceremony, I love the moments before. The emotions are just so high, especially beforehand. That one was, and again, same thing happened to me last night there with that. So the ceremonies, I'm going to go through quickly with just a couple ceremony photos. You got your processional, anticipation, reaction. I shoot a lot of different ethnic weddings. You darn well better understand what kind of wedding you're shooting and all of the symbols behind what they're doing at these weddings, okay? Whether it be Jewish wedding, whether it be South Asian wedding, Hindu or Sikh or Muslim or whatever they are, this is gifts to the Blessed Mother during a Catholic ceremony. This is crowning during a Greek ceremony. Very important. So sometimes with ceremonies, it's tough. Find out what you can and can't do. Communicate with the church lady, if you will, all right? It's always easier to be forgiven than it is to get permission. I didn't say that. Work the light. Wherever there is, work that light. Be sensitive, be unobtrusive. Jack up the ISO. I will never use a flash during a ceremony. I will never use a flash during a ceremony, especially now that I have Z6s, Z6-2s. Anticipate and react. There are, of course, sometimes where you're simply screwed, okay? Where the bride is like 8 stops brighter than everybody else because the light just doesn't cooperate. It happens. This photograph I had to take because it's the front of the chuppah, and Look at that ugly, splotchy light. I couldn't say, hey, can you move everything? Let's move the ceremony to a different spot. So I just did what I always do and improvise, and I put the subject between me and the sun. Same thing. Sun was coming from the other direction. You really have to be on your toes here. This was the kiss. That was the Delaware River behind there. It was really bright. I would say it was probably, I don't know, 8 stops brighter than the scene in the open shade. You better be ready for that, because you'll have questions to answer if you screw these up. There's no
Cliff, along that lines with you shooting in the sun, a couple people ask questions about raising shadows in post to balance the bright lights. Do you do that? How do you do it?
No. Get it right in camera. Okay? I don't mean to sound so harsh, but that's amateur hour. Raising shadows to bring up exposure value is asking to create color noise, chromatic aberration. Get it right in camera, expose properly. In this situation, okay, I know that I'm going to have to expose properly, and I'm going to have to blow out the background, and I'm not going to care. Unless I had my 10 gigawatt generator to give me 20 ProPhoto B1s to blast on this scene, I'm going to have to expose properly in camera, and I'm going to have to know what I'm doing. And that's why you need to really sharpen skill sets. There, I'm being preachy. Sorry. But that's the way it is. Be prepared, okay? They're underneath a chuppah at a Jewish wedding. The exposure value is very different than what's outside underneath this thing. It's tough. It's tough. Don't be afraid to take a frame and look at the back of the camera if you're not using a mirrorless camera. That is the beauty of mirrorless. If you trust your electronic viewfinder, this is no longer an issue. It's putting teachers like me out of business. Not really, but I don't have to teach exposures anymore. They're easy. The only thing I worry about telling my students is if they're going to get a sharp photo by freezing the action, and if it's not frozen, they need to speed their shutter or raise their ISO and speed their shutter. Plain and simple. Know your client, know the ceremony, the grabbing of the nose at certain Hindu weddings. Very, very important. If I miss this, again, I'm going to have to answer questions. You know, these are important photographs to capture. They truly, truly are. These are all symbolic elements that I'm not going to go deeply into, but you have to capture them. Wonderful moments. Prosperity is a great teacher. Adversity is a greater teacher. Sometimes you're at a ceremony and you're just completely screwed. This is what I was dealing with, all right? Totally, totally screwed. Half of them are exposed properly, half aren't. I'm not using flash, so I tried a little Photoshop. That didn't work. So I just tried to be patient, and I got it. The gear we have today has changed everything. This is the Franklin Institute. This is a wedding in a planetarium. It's pitch black. Pitch black. So today, I can make that look like just, I can go in there 6,400 or 12,000 ISO without a problem. Then there's the moments after the ceremony. All right. Good stuff. Talk a little bit about flash. All right. There's all your stuff that I'm not going to go into. I went into this the other night a little bit during my flash seminar. And then there's a flash puzzle. Understanding ambient. Shutter speed has no effect on flash. I talked about that the other night with the balance of flash and ambient, okay? Understanding flash power. All right, one full blast here will give you the same amount as 1/16th power of 16 speed lights. There's the flash I'm using now. It's a 200 watt second strobe. And the triggers that they have right now, by the way, work for all cameras. If you watch my flash class the other night, I talk about how I created this image, which I'm not going into now because it takes me 10 minutes just to explain it, okay? And then I talk about finding balance, controlling your shutter speed to really allow backgrounds to be prominent. This is all done with shutter speeds. Family formals, that's my family. They're important. Don't poo-poo them. And the clients, of course, tend to underestimate the amount of family formals that we have to do sometimes, which is absolutely insane. Lighting them, that is wrong. That is right. Fill, you've got to use some flash fill, guys. This is a well-done family formal. I missed because it misfired. That's my flash misfiring. Same exact exposure settings, only the flash fired. So I'm underexposing everything else and filling in with my flash. I'm still using flash benders. All right, I still love my flash benders. So here's what I do. I look for open shade. I look for bright, simple, neutral backgrounds for separation. I like longer rather than shorter lenses so that I can adjust my composition. In manual camera mode, I underexpose the scene by about a stop or two and fill in with my flash at a little angle, okay? Sometimes it's technically difficult. I had to use 2 speed lights here because it was so bright outside. I didn't have a 200 watt second light here for myself. This is 1,000 watt seconds. This is 2 ProPhoto B1s for a large bridal party. Sometimes you need a lot of light. I wanted this effect. I didn't use any light here. 500 watt seconds at the beach. You need a lot of power at the beach. And then sometimes you don't need any for some of these formals. You just let people do what they do. I wanted to show this is that you can freeze the action with formal photos at 1/10 of a second. When your ambient light is low and you're 2 stops below the ambient reading with your camera settings, you can freeze the action with flash duration with a slow shutter speed. And that way you're allowing the ambient to be up just a little bit so that it's not black backgrounds. Hope that's understood. But like I said, in the program I did the other night, you can get it. Receptions, go available when you can. Become symbiotic with your assistant. Let them know where you need them to be. This is Stella, which didn't work here. Flash was the way to go here. I use flash at my receptions. I don't use continuous lighting at my receptions. I just wanted everybody to know that. I talk Stella, Stella, Stella all day until the reception. Then I use my flash a lot. And you can see here, this was a misfire, same settings with a little bit of fill. So try to do that. Try to get your ambient reading about 2 stops below what a proper exposure would be, and then add a little bit of light. It's about a 30th of a second. I'm below the ambient reading. I'm freezing action. Sometimes my assistant goes behind and gives me a little light from behind. I'm going quickly because I want to get to my favorite part, which is coming up in a little bit. I had like 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound can, and I always try to do too much. So I'm going a little quicker, trying to show a lot of slides. And here we go, a couple more reception images. All off-camera lighting, my assistant's to the right, giving me a little manual flash burst for my blessings, for my toasts, long lenses. I deliberately went to full sync speed, 2/50th, to bring the background down there. And then that's also some balanced fill flash controlling the ambient light with a shutter speed. Sometimes I use a little bit of direct flash on camera for horas, especially, all right, for certain dances. No flash here whatsoever. Sometimes I don't need it. Window light. These are all reception images. No light. There's a lot of decorative lighting going on here. All right. And sometimes at the end, I'm going to go for that album ender. Okay. The sparkler exit. There's always a sparkler exit, right? This is the Liberty House restaurant. I wanted to do a really dramatic image towards the end of the evening so that they can close their album with it. All right. I might have shown that one before. The rain image, backlit rain. Everybody likes that. It's a crowd pleaser, right? Try to modify your flash so that it's not bouncing all over the place though. You don't want the ground hit with your flash. This is Stella, and I gelled it with a tungsten gel in tungsten camera mode to make the sky go blue. Okay, and a little bit of Stella towards the end of the evening. Of course, the rainbow shot. Oh, sorry, twice. If everyone's thinking alike, then someone isn't thinking. I talked about this the other night, and I talked about how I made this image. It's a 30-second exposure. It's a light painting, okay? And then putting it all together. I'll share this with you. This is 1 minute. Maybe I won't. It was a video that was embedded, did not play. Sorry about that. All well laid out plans never work, right? Sorry about that. Sometimes I have so much passion for this. Sometimes you have to let go of it. When I really want to make an image at a wedding and I really think something's going to work and it doesn't, back in the day, I used to let it get to me. I used to let, I get frustrated. Don't let the client see that. That used to happen to me a little bit. Not every wedding is going to win a grand award. Okay, there's certain weddings that might make you question why you even do them. Okay, if each photograph steals a bit of the soul, isn't it possible I give up pieces of mine every time I take a picture? And I was in Hong Kong, and I was hoping to make some really amazing images. And all they had me do was go around in Hong Kong and take pictures of them at monuments, when I could have been making such beautiful images. They were a beautiful couple. And all they wanted to do was stand there and do the American, what they called just the American portraits. That's what they kept calling it. And then I said, Shin, would you like me to do anything else for you or your bridal party when I was shooting the bridal party? She said, I would like you to do the jumping picture that I see in America. And there's the jumping picture that everyone sees in America. And a little piece of me inside just died. One frame, I got it. I smiled. They loved it. That's all that matters, right? That's all that matters. I had a conversation with Jay Maisel years ago. Money or art? I said, do you have any advice for somebody who's been shooting 30 years, Jay? Any advice at all? I feel like I'm stale. I feel like I'm getting stagnant. And he said, I won't do my Jay impression, but he said, the trouble with people like you is all you think about is the bleeping money. Bleep the art, make the money. That's what he said. Every so often we're reminded of how important it is what we do, okay? This was a wedding. This is one of the first same-sex weddings that was allowed in New York State. I'll just let the images do the talking. I felt so privileged doing that wedding. You have no idea. Details. This is a detail. Every single bride in this family since 1887 walked down the aisle with that handkerchief. That's a detail. And instead of just taking a picture on the table, I had her hold it. So, it's a little more important to me than pictures of Manolo Blahniks. Call me crazy. Moments. This is what I wanted to get to. What use is having great depth of field when there's not an adequate depth of feeling? Moments before. The emotions just are what really drives me to capture weddings. That's one of my dear friends. I shot his daughter's wedding. 3 generations. A first look, exchanging a note. The thing that's important to know is that you never know. You're always sort of feeling your way. I showed this earlier. I had no idea where I was going to do this first look until the last minute. The whole point of taking pictures is you don't have to say things with words. I showed this earlier. Grandmom. What's grandmom doing before the ceremony? Only in Philadelphia, right? You can look at a picture for a week and never think of it again. You can also look at a picture for a second and think of it all your life. And this picture still haunts me to this day. He is a Holocaust survivor, father of the bride. Father of the groom. He was the patriarch of the family, and he performed the ceremony. And he just reached up and grabbed his other son's hand during what's called a tish, during a Jewish ceremony. Emotions, that's what it's all about. Creativity is more than just being different. Anybody can be plain weird. That's easy. What's hard is to be as simple as Bach, making the simple awesomely simple. That's creativity. And just, I talked about it last night, which is trying to make these images that have so many layers. It's very, very bothersome to me that photographers are so hung up on trying to impress other photographers. Let's try to impress our clients a little bit more. 12 significant crops in any 1 year is a good crop. I don't like much of the work that I do. I think it's consistent, but every once in a while I make a picture that moves me, that I love. This was one of those from a few years ago. From that wedding, that meant so much to me. I'm looking for the unexpected. I'm looking for things I've never seen before. And I showed this last night, juxtaposition. Who sees a horse sneezing in a bride's face? The moments, they're just so, so important. This guy was having a hard time, and the bride tried to calm him down. Work the moments. Sometimes there's sequences with these moments. Don't just take the frame and take it away from your face and look at the LCD, because you're going to miss what's going to happen after it. There's always something going on after. This was a nice little sequence. They're just bride and maid of honor just dancing in the room. Sequences. Work the moments. The bride came out just seconds later. First time he saw her, first time she saw him. I think the horse is smiling at her there. The cheek squeeze. Oh, I showed that one already. So this was a sequence that this couple actually really liked in their album. Moments after. That's the third time I showed that. My apologies. The best images are the ones that retain their strength and impact over the years, regardless of the number of times they were viewed. And this next image still blows me away. She wanted to smell the rose from the bouquet, and the bride had asked me to take her to the hospital to see her before the wedding because she wasn't going to be able to attend. This photograph is in grandmom's casket, and it meant a lot to me that that happened. Make images that stand the test of time. There is nothing more important. 2003, 1999, 2004, same wedding. This was sort of the image that helped me understand how I wanted to use light. I just dug this one up today. I think this is like 2001. Early portrait, early stages of digital. I just photographed their family portraits. They've got 3 kids now. Really old stuff, guys. A picture is a secret about a secret. The more it tells you, the less you know. I talked about this last night. his wife had passed just a couple months before. And I really concentrated on him as the bride was walking down the aisle. For me, the subject is always more important than the picture. And that really rings true for this image. I could have taken them and there were shrubs in front. I could have put the shrubs in front. I could have, hidden them with the shrubs and done a layer like that, and then the couple, and then another layer and another layer. Why? That won't stand the test of time, but this one will. The picture is good or not from the moment it was caught in camera. There's no unsuck filter in Photoshop. We're only as good as our clients. I love saying that. And this was a photograph made just a few seconds after that other one at the gravesite. And he's paying respects to his grandparents who raised him. I really believe there's things nobody would see if I didn't photograph them. I showed this before. Dan Arbus said this, and I end everything with this photograph. And if you look at it long enough, you will see an old lady. So, am I still on here, Pete? Is this on? Is this on?
You are still on. That was wonderful.
Thanks, brother.